There we go. I think you're connected now.
Good afternoon.
Nathaniel
Yes, sir. Hi, Jesse.
and Chrissy, correct?
Hi.
Christy and Nathaniel. Yeah, my son is not going to make it. He's 15, so that should tell you something.
Sure.
He is definitely involved with the dog, and everything will be communicated to him, but he's not going to be on that.
Sure. And then just as a heads up or reminder, we put on the consultation, but we've been recording all the Zoom sessions, training sessions, and everything. Just to remind people, because they kind of blow past things and they don't see that.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
No worries, man.
So I think you had sent an email, was it to my facility about a board and train and needing boarding and daycare for your dog?
Well, it was more train, and then also kind of looking at boarding or daycare options.
Okay.
So definitely interested in both, but training primarily and first.
And then you have a Pittie who's vision impaired.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Small pit, 40-pound,
How old?
limited vision. Like I think we kind of have figured out that he picks up shadows, but not much clarity at all.
Sure. How old is he?
He is 2.5-ish,
Okay.
give or take. Yeah.
Sure.
Got him from anti-cruelty, and they estimated him about a year when we got him year and a half ago. So.
Gotcha. What was the cause for the blindness, or is it just genetic?
I think it seemed like, something that maybe infection at birth, maybe type of thing is what the vet had hypothesized. His eyes are a mess. If you look at them, they look like smeared kind of, what I
Sure.
mean? There's not a clear eyeball there that you can see.
Yeah, like cloudy or something.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So.
And then reactivity, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, like, just, I guess, for clarity on your part, like, case in point, most specific issue, we have neighbors with a dog and a couple of real young kids. They come out their door in the morning every morning with or without the dog. And if he's out back or if our windows are open, it's like a real intense, immediate, barking fit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, but that kind of thing is what our biggest issue is.
Sure.
Right now, just trying to limit the dog reactivity in situations like that.
How long has it been displaying that behavior?
I would say it's just summer, right? It's basically like if windows are shut, AC's on, or during the winter, he's a pretty darn peaceful, wonderful dog.
Okay.
As soon as windows are open and he's out back. So I would say he did last summer a little bit too. We've had him for a year and a half.
Sure.
But this year more, I don't know if we're noticing it more but I think
I
from
would
the
say
get-go.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think back a year ago at the summer, we were, there was other stuff, potty training still going on, stuff like that. So maybe it didn't jump out at us as much.
Okay. Well, I guess that's an easy fix. Just close all the windows.
I know, right? Like we just got to move to a
Never go outside.
top floor apartment somewhere, and we got no concerns.
Yeah. And then have you done anything yourselves to try to resolve that problem?
So we have worked with one trainer, and we were taking him to a place that had daycare where we would take him periodically. So it would be like a couple times a month just for a day.
Mm-hmm.
He also has like
That wasn't
definitely
training, so.
no, right. And then so through that place, we had also done 5 or 6 maybe hour sessions with a trainer
Mm-hmm.
who ended up leaving that place and moving out to the burbs. And so we kind of tried to stay in touch with him, but there was some communication issues and
Sure.
and whatnot. So we're just kind of looking, and there was no longer any boarding connection to that. It'd be we prefer to have some training we could do that would connect to a place where we could trust
Sure.
having him. So at this place, we would take him, and they did a lot of dogs. They definitely, I think, specialized in, maybe trickier dogs,
Mm-hmm.
which is why we first went there, and it's real close. But we would pick him up, and he definitely has like pretty classic separation anxiety too.
Okay.
Doesn't destroy the whole house, but if you leave stuff, if something's left out, it's going to be shredded. And he, so at that place, we would pick him up, leave him, from 8 till 6 or whatever, 8 to 7, and he just would be soaked. And then when we see him here, when we've tried crating him or when we are outside, like, and another one of I think our biggest issues right now is like if me and her just go outside and are talking to somebody out front, during the last Corona 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
he just is kind of pretty much inconsolable at
Sure.
the door. You know, he won't just sit down and relax even for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of barking, and then he'll start gnawing on the door. So all our doors, you know, the first month we had him, when we would try, you know, putting him in a room for a minute, you know, he real quick destroyed the inside of the doors, like the low, right at his kind of eye level underneath the doorknob.
Yeah.
That was like real typical. So he hasn't been put in that position anymore. You know what I mean? So we haven't had any new destruction except the front door. If we go outside for a minute, he'll do that. And so what my point is that when we would take him to daycare, you know, I would say, well, how was he? You know, we know, like, we're seeing at home that he gets pretty like nervous and salivates a lot. And if we've done some crate, you know, effort at crate training, it's the same thing if the gate's shut. I mean, it's
We have
limited.
done zero effort at crate training. I mean, we have a crate in here, but we're trying to put food in there a little bit. But for me, that's one of my number one goals, is to make sure to get him where he can be crate trained, which we didn't do at the beginning. And so I kind of want to get back to that, so we can go and take him to someone's house, like overnight, or leave him. You know, right now he would destroy the house if you left him alone in it.
But his reaction is so intense. You know what I mean? When he's in the crate, like, this was kind of like the first time we put him in a crate, we're like, yeah, they said recommended it, no big deal. I mean, it was like soaking wet, you know, like we had to put a blanket over the top, and it was everything was shredded. And he's just a mess. And so when I would take him to this place, kind of what, you know, also made us look at other options is that he, you know, we would be like, oh no, he's pretty good. No, he's pretty good. He doesn't seem too upset, but he's like soaked. And I know from what he's like here, when we, you know, lock him in anything or shut him in a cage or a crate or a room even, it's like, it is not just like a little bit of whining and then he settles down. Like, it's the entire time. So I'm assuming that he pretty much just is like in a heightened anxiety state, licking the whatever door shuts on them the entire time, except when they take him out. So that was kind of why I was more looking for more, I guess, like honest discussions about, do you think this is maybe not a good thing for, even if he's not a good dog for that kind of daycare environment or for boarding, you know, there or other places, then totally get it. I just want to be able to like have that open communication. I wasn't getting that. You know what I mean? So
I gotcha. I feel like I know the place too, because there's only one other place that's similar to me that's kind of more structured and specializes in taking in dogs with behavioral issues.
Yeah.
If it's the place I'm thinking of, I like them. You know, I've sent them clients and stuff recently. And it's like, is it by a big, large park?
Yeah. By the river.
Yep. I know.
Yeah, and they do a huge business, and I think they are what they are, and was great. And I didn't think there was anything shady going on. It was just like, he's a little bit special. You know, he has literally special needs, and he's just, you know, young still. So
yeah, and that's my big thing is I tell people I'm super transparent.
Right.
Which is partially why we record everything and just uncut, unedited.
Sure.
So that people can see from beginning to end how it works. Like I have nothing to hide, essentially. And when, how would you say, and what allowed me to really do this was coronavirus.
Sure.
I've always wanted to do it, you know, like record stuff and put it up, but people are always like kind of anti it. And I'm like, well, now it's so much information, and I'm verbal coaching the owners.
Sure.
That they'll forget stuff, you know, so then they have something to go back to. So it's part to show transparency, like, this is how I operate. If you don't like it, please feel free to do your research and go elsewhere, right?
Sure.
But also just with transparency, unfortunately, there is a lot of misinformation out there. Sometimes people do hide things, you know. In your case, not bad, right? Like he's not having a bad time, but he's clearly stressed and under duress, right? And as an owner, you're just like, they would have told you, like, yeah, you know what, he is anxious, he does this and does that, he does play with the dogs, but hey, this is just how he is. You probably would have been like, all right, yeah, I get it, cool. Right. At least I can make a decision going forward knowing that. Right. If I want to return him to the environment, or if I decide to keep him at home since he's not having a good time. Right.
Sure.
So when it comes to separation anxiety, everything that you've noted so far, the separation anxiety would be the toughest. Okay. In my experience, separation anxiety is not anything that the dog is genetically born with, like the blindness or anything like that. It's more so created through attachment issues. Okay. So a lot of people have gotten puppies during quarantine. I was gonna say coronavirus, quarantine. And I don't think one thing that they planned for was separation anxiety in the future.
Sure.
Because they can't leave their puppy. So all the puppies that have signed up during quarantine, I've told them, if you can't leave the house, make sure you start keeping your puppy. If you would work like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday routine, you want to kennel your puppy 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, despite the fact that you're home.
Gotcha.
Start getting them primed for when they got to leave to go back to work. They're already used to a separation and a 9 to 5 schedule. Okay. Because some people were already noticing, like, yeah, I can't leave the house for 10 minutes to go get groceries because then the puppy will just throw a fit.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's because you.
I mean, we were going to work for a year and he was, okay. I mean, he would still kind of wreck things in the house if you left anything out, which is why I want to kind of go backwards and do like a crate training. I don't think we want to board him every day. We would like to get to a place where he could be home most of the days. I think the separation anxiety is like if we're just out front or if we're out back. And
I see. If you're like nearby, he knows it.
Right.
And is like inconsolable.
I mean, going completely insane. And right, if that isn't, I don't know if that's just a way of being, but to me, I would like to be able to put him in a crate in that situation, like where he would feel comfortable and like okay and not be just like sitting right next to the front door when we're standing outside. And because right now, like we live in the city and we're right next to the neighbors. So that's the biggest, like we can't be outside with the neighbors because he barks the whole time, and we can't be outside when he's inside because he goes completely crazy. So, and he can't be outside if the neighbors are outside because he barks at them and ruins their time.
Tries to dig under the fence. He gets real intense with their.
Sure.
But it's tricky because he is definitely not, he's not like psychotic dog aggressive. He's super reactive, but it's not like automatic violence. I've got a buddy that will walk our dogs together and he gets along pretty well with that dog. It's a smaller one, which is good. So he's kind of hit or miss with dogs.
I think it's more just like we need more tools to train him.
Sure.
That's I think it's just pretty basic.
So
we had a guy that I did like the other guy, but he did move and just the communication kind of got too, a little bit scattered, but we definitely had made some progress with him in terms of some things. So it was, I don't want to seem like it's not a complete disaster. And it's almost opposite for him with Corona. It's like, we had kind of found a nice routine. We had a good dog walker that we liked that was real consistent. We would take him to the place on Thursdays, just for one. And he would be wet, come and picked up, but I would see they'd show the video of like him playing and he would play fine with in the right group.
Sure.
And so we had kind of gotten to a pretty good routine with him before the Corona hit. Now it's like, because we're home, I'm sure you've heard this too, and now we're home and trying to work from home, and it's like sent him kind of into a whole nother state of mind too.
Right.
So whereas we had like kind of a good place with him, we don't know how much he barked all day when we were all gone, but we certainly if we took care of the house in the right way and didn't leave stuff out, and part of that's just because he's a puppy too, or still young. But we had gotten a pretty good routine down with him before the quarantine hit, and we both started working from home.
Okay.
And so that kind of triggered some more awareness of his reactivity.
Sure. Like what's going on throughout the day.
Yeah.
I get that. Like, because if you're gone 9 to 5, and then now you're working 9 to 5 at home, and it's like, man, you bark a lot more than I thought you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I get that. And so, like, if you, let's say you went out for like a couple hours to do some errands and he was home alone, not crated, he'd be fine without with maybe the occasional like chewed on a shoe type of thing.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. That's so. All right. This makes more sense now.
Yeah.
Okay. So the attachment stuff for me is really like a spoiled brat. You know, he knows you're nearby. He wants to be there with you. Kind of like, hey, you forgot about me, so on and so forth.
Yep.
If it's just that, that's easier to tackle than if there was a whole like separate, like even when you're gone, like it's bad type of deal.
No, I don't think it. I have friends who have dogs with separation anxiety, and I don't think that that's it. Where they like can, yeah, you know what I mean. Where it's that severe. It's more just that spoiled bratness, for sure.
So the one variable here would be, let's say he's fine if you leave him loose for 2 hours, you leave, come back, versus you crate him 2 hours when you leave and come back. That's very different. Okay, so he might be fine with one setting, but not fine with the other setting. Okay. It's definitely something that can be addressed and that I can go over with you and everything. But the tricky part is, let's say he's salivating in the kennel, but if you leave him loose, he's fine.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to address the salivating. Okay. So let's say he goes in the kennel, and I've had dogs go in there and lay down and seemingly look relaxed, and then the owner will leave and come back an hour later, and then there's a puddle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. The dog's still laying down, but it's just soaked, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm like, there's not much, you're gone. Like there's nothing you can really do. What I care about was the dog being self-destructive. I had a dog that ate his own tail.
Okay.
You know, he had separation anxiety so bad. And dogs that break teeth trying to break out of the kennel, tear up their noses, bending the kennel bars and trying to squeeze out and stuff, right? So there is kind of like it all depends on the dog. Some cases it gets better, some cases it stays static, but at least the dog's not like self-mutilating or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a remains to be seen type of behavior. Okay. But definitely if you step outside to talk to the neighbor, that's not a problem. That separation anxiety point is easy because you're still nearby to address it. Okay.
Right.
The reactivity that you noted, is it like the occasional reactivity? Is it like when a dog is running too quickly? Is it like a biker, rollerblader, you know, any kind
Like
of
right now he's
Hey.
up on the window and like barking outside because it
Come here.
seems like maybe there's some people or something.
Only if he hears like usually if he hears like the jingle, you know, with him it's goofy because of the sight. You know, a lot of times when he's not reactive, we're on a walk and he's like being a saint. You know, he probably is not noticing a lot of the dogs.
Sure.
But you know, he definitely, you know, and there's reactive dogs everywhere for sure. He doesn't like initiate a lot of the stuff, but he definitely gets.
But like he's the dog at the park who is, if you pass another dog that he either smells or hears, he is pulling and like he doesn't, you know, and you're pulling off to the side and you have to like hold him back. And then same, you know, then when you go in the backyard, if people come over, he will jump on them and not aggressively, but he jumps up and, you know, and then eventually he'll be cool. And then everyone's like, oh, he's so nice. But he is definitely, you know, he doesn't just like take a nice walk with, if nothing else happened, he'll be fine. But if there's a, you know.
Okay, so it seems like most of the reactivity you're noting is inside the home, at the window or glass doors or something. Is that correct?
Yeah, the one thing on walks that he's been
hears.
doing lately is when he picks up on a dog close. You know, if there's something scent involved with the type of dog, who knows? But he's also like kind of been making a scene lately when it is a dog that he decides he's fully aware of and like, you know, reacting to, like crazy noise I've never heard a dog make. Like somewhat of it makes a scene, you know, and then becomes like, you know, but it's not every time, which, you know, it literally is not even sometimes when he's aware of a dog, if I've got him, you know, right with the collar and the collar's in the right spot and, you know, we see it coming, there is some ability to manage it. but not always. And when it's not managed, it is pretty much a scene. You know what I mean? Like this noise.
Yeah,
That
I know the sound.
whoa!
Yeah.
And we've had, just FYI, like this is our third pit. I've had them since I was 20, so like 20 years. So we know like the intensity and like this, the need for like, to work them out and try and stress them out. And that's something we've definitely been working on with him more. But definitely like are aware of like their heightened nature just in general for sure.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's not gonna be like a quick fix for a pit's, heightened nature.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned that because like I have a pit myself. She's my right hand girl, and I've worked with a lot of pits in my career.
Okay. Cool.
And when you say like when they're heightened, right? When he's escalated, they do take things to a different degree. So like a reactive German Shepherd and a reactive pit bull are very different animals.
Sure.
They're both dogs, but the intensity that a Pittie brings, whether it's reactivity, separation anxiety, nervousness, fear, that intensity that was bred into them carries into whatever it is that they're doing. You know what I mean? So yeah, so all that stuff sounds normal for the breed.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not really picking up anything out the ordinary that I would say is concerning. Okay. Now you mentioned a collar and in the right spot. Is that an e-collar or a different?
No, we have not done the e-collar yet though. Although the guy we were working with, it was definitely always something kind of on the table.
Sure.
Just a prong collar. But
okay.
that was kind of what our next step probably would have been in terms of the backyard type stuff, like just trying to get his attention better when he initially reacts to the neighbors or whatever. But no, have not used an e-collar yet. Are totally open to whatever.
So did you guys do any research before reaching out and doing like scheduling with us and everything, like knowing what I'm about?
Honestly, with her, I told her a year ago back in the beginning when we had just gotten him, I was determined because our last two pits were not dog friendly at all. And so with this guy, I was like, I want to be able to take him to the dog park. Like just this, I don't want to go through.
He got a recommendation. That's the long.
I got a recommendation at the dog park. I didn't know the girl. I didn't catch her name, anything like that. She had a pit that was super composed, and she was like, Jesse from Canine Perspective. He was amazing. So I remembered that, but that was a year ago or so. Yeah, and I don't have a name or anything like that.
Out here.
I know, right? No, you should. But the dog was absolutely incredibly calm and youngish. I think she'd start training.
So what are
early.
you?
Well,
we
so that
only
was
have a certain amount of time. So
let him keep talking.
Okay, yeah.
No, you're
what
fine.
were you gonna say that you're about? You are not for the prong. You would say
No, so I'm predominantly what's known as an e-collar trainer. Okay. All my dogs over 6 months are e-collar trained.
Gotcha.
Okay. So most people look at it as the last resort. It's the first resort for me.
Okay.
Okay. The reason is, and there's tons of reasons here, and it's okay if we go over a little bit. Okay. Is one, you get off-leash control. Okay. It's the only tool that can guarantee you off-leash control. Your situation is a little bit different because your dog's blind. We'd have to figure something out because I would only allow him to get so far, because of the vision thing. I've trained off-leash deaf dogs. That's not even though they can't hear you, the collar vibrates. So we just teach the dog that vibrate means to find the owner, and then the remote part of it means to actually come back. Okay. But since your dog's blind and we don't have that vision, right? If you're in a setting where he can't hear you due to environmental issues, that's where things get a little tricky. Okay. So it gives you off-leash control. It removes a lot of technical skill. So prong collar takes technical skill, but also takes to some degree physical control, like physical strength, right? So if you have like an 80-pound pit pulling you on the prong collar, and one person is 5 foot and the other person is 6 foot, the 5-foot person probably is going to have a hard time controlling that dog, right? Or if they don't have the physical capacity to correct firm enough for the dog to listen.
Right, like it's not fun for me to walk him because it's too physically hard to control him.
Correct. The e-collar removes this, okay, that factor, because Have you ever been to a physical therapist or a chiropractor? No? So they have this machine called a TENS unit. And you might have seen it like in the movies where they put like these little circles on the person and you'll see the muscle twitching,
Sure.
right? That's a TENS unit, and they use it to break up scar tissue on muscles. They use it in sports therapy and muscle rehabilitation to help build the strength. It's just, or you might see those commercials where it's like work while you're watching TV, and they have the things on the person's stomach, and it's causing them to contract to build abs, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's that technology. Okay. People think it's like a taser or like electrocuting the dog, but it's not. Okay. It's a centralized muscle contraction located to where the collar is placed. So if it's here, you would see the muscle here can move, but he's not feeling anything anywhere else.
Oh, neat.
Okay. So it's just a muscle contraction. So on a human, if you went to a therapist, a physical therapist, and they had to use this on you, they would tell you, tell us when this is too much. And they raise the number, and eventually you'll see your muscles moving, and then it'll become uncomfortable, and you'll say right there, that's too much. They'll lower it down, and they'll say, how does that feel? And you say, that's better. And they're like, okay, we're gonna leave you alone now so that the machine can do its work. Okay, very similar to dogs. We start low, we work our way up, right? So we just had a training session, a 75-pound pit who was human and dog reactive, and just dragging the owners all over the place. 5 to 10 minutes, he was boom, right at her side. Walking, no pulling, dogs walking by. He would try to go, one tap, boom, he'd sit down. Easy peasy, okay? Because of the way that I teach it. Okay, not everybody teaches collar like I teach it, okay? So we had to go, this collar is meant for 70-pound dogs and over, okay? It's the big boy collar. And his number at the start was 70-75, okay? It maxes at 127, just to give you an idea.
Okay.
So since we had the right number that was for his specific personality type, it was very easy to get him to start listening, because the contraction that we had it set to was concerning enough for him to think, I better start behaving myself, okay? Most trainers really push what they call low-level e-collar. Okay. I'm all for low level, but it's the way that they sell it. It's what I have a problem with. They sell it as you're going to be operating on like levels 5 and 8, super low levels, right? But you're constantly having to jack it up every time a context comes up where the dog might be reactive or distracted, okay? And it's a constant problem. You're always
not proactive. You're saying it's like more not proactive e-collaring.
Yeah, it's like reactive, right? It's like every time you see something happen, now you jack it up. I go, why not just start at a number that the dog respects off the bat, so that in the future, as you're training, it becomes less and less, and the dog is now more well-behaved, because you're setting the standard from the get-go, as opposed to being super low, then jumping super high, then being super low, then jumping super high. Does that make sense?
Yep, perfect sense, yep.
So the dog tells me what's too much and what's too little, okay? If I'm at 50 and everything is perfect and I'm not getting reactivity and I'm not having to constantly jack it up, then my number is 50, right? I might get a dog whose number is, I have one right now that operates like around 8 to 11, which is it's not common, but that's just a number. So that's what we work with, right? Every dog is different. That's why we start low, we work our way up, and we find what's going to work, okay? The first thing that I always teach is the heel command, okay? Or leash walking. And to be honest with you, I've worked with partially blind dogs, but still had reasonable vision, dogs with one eye, but not a dog that could only see shapes that we can pass, okay? I don't perceive it to be a problem, because he's going to be on leash, and he's going to be tethered to you, and you're going to be within a 6-foot range. So understanding his blindness, from what you've told me, I would think not a problem, okay? And we teach him to walk next to you, no tension, complete slack leash. Okay. So with the prong collar, it's like usually you have to shorten it up, or you're like constantly like kind of tugging on the dog. I want him to be glued to your side.
Okay.
Okay. When we get that kind of attention or focus, theoretically, it should make you so important that he doesn't care what everything else is about. Okay. Now, the variable of being blind is different because it creates an uncertainty of what is this object. Okay. That's the only thing that I would call out.
Sure.
So then if we did still see reactivity, all it means is the first approach that we thought to address the problem didn't work, but we still have to do it to give foundation.
Okay.
Is then if he does see something and become reactive to a shape, then we got to teach him to not, like, we have to provide consequence for the behavior to teach him. I get that you saw that shape and it was concerning enough for you to become reactive, but there's a consequence and you don't need to be. Okay.
Gotcha.
So for dogs, when it comes to behavior, it's not, obedience doesn't always fix the problem.
Okay.
Okay. So growing up, like, I was raised old school, I was spanked. So like if I didn't do my homework, if I talked back, or if I didn't do my chores, spank, spank, spank. Right. So one consequence for a multitude of behaviors, right? For dogs, it's similar. So if, so what's your dog's name again?
Doc, DOC?
Doc, that's right. I remember looking at like, Doc, is he a doctor? Doc, if Doc did something to another dog and that dog disagreed with it, they might nip or bite him. Right?
Right. Keep him in line. Sure. Sure.
Right? So the e-collar is our means of replicating a dog bite without actually biting the dog.
Gotcha.
I can match intensity because all I got to do is raise my number. I don't need physical strength because the remote and the collar does that itself.
Got it.
Right? So like the lady today, she was probably, I think she was like 5'6", maybe 130 pounds with a 75 pound Pittie,
Yeah.
you know, and the collar is all that she needed. That was
Huh.
getting everything done.
Okay.
Right? And as we progressed, it went down a little lower. And we put her in a setting where we put the mom in a setting where we added high distraction and the dog got really intense. And we ended up going up to 85 to settle him down. And then they went back to like 65, 70. So I could show them the difference between, you know, this context is much more stimulating as opposed to this context. So you just raise your number in this setting until we taught the rule. And then as we repeated it, you see that he ends up behaving himself, even though there's a bunch of crap going on over here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once you, it's very simple. It's a very common sense exercise and learning process. The only hard part for people is raising the number.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because since you're logical, let's say, you know, he does something like jump on you, right? Or jump on someone. And we're doing all the low level stuff like 20 to 30 that stop the behavior. And then I find out that he needs 85, right? The human goes, well, he's just jumping on someone. Does he really need 85? And I go, well, we did everything else and it didn't work. 85 is what works. But to the human, it seems too high for such a low behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But to the dog, it's adequate.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. That's the hard part that people have is raising the number. And we're not trying to get the dog yipping and yelping.
Right.
But we're trying to find a number that he respects. So ideally over time, we're not having to constantly be low and jacking it up. Does that make sense?
We won't have an issue. Yeah. I mean, and kind of another thing of why we're reaching out to you is like, I know for me, especially, it's like, we're mad at him so much right now. You know what I mean? Irritated. It's like, it's just terrible. So like, you know, I'm sick of being mad. I'm sick of trying to snap the collar just right to get him to, you know, and not getting enough of the redirection. So yeah, we totally get that and are comfortable with
good. And then
finding that right number and trying to do away with, you know, the yelling and the discipline and the attempts at using the choke collar correctly. And
yeah, and I'm not
like
against prong. Like I love.
Oh yeah, neither are we. It just, but with him, it hasn't. I've done a lot with him trying to, you know, where I've got, you know, had him on the choke, you know, the prong collar a ton in the last month or two.
Sure.
You know, out back and even when we're just hanging out on back in case, you know, they come out and I want to be able to like redirect them. And it's pretty limited response.
Yeah.
And also been using more, feeding him less at meal, like, making him earn all his food.
Sure.
Was another thing we had kind of been working on to try and get him, to, and it always came back with the other guy. He talked about just spoiled a lot. You know what I mean? Even if you're not aware of it, you're like, you got to ignore the dog more. You got to, don't feel like you have to give him all this and this and this. Make him earn his treat.
Yeah.
Make him earn when he's eating foods and stuff. But I didn't, like, especially with the reactivity, you could see the improvement a lot. I can get him to sit and stay, and I can walk pretty far away now and stuff. And I'll, like, so he knows where I am as he's coming, because he
Sure.
can't see. But he's gotten pretty darn impressive with that. But in terms of the reactivity, relying on, like, treats and having the prong collar on even when he's out back, so we can, manage him better when he does react, I haven't seen a whole lot of improvement. You know what I mean? If any.
Yeah, because you
Kinda
can't
why.
match the intensity is what it sounds like. So,
Yeah,
like, if
exactly.
he's at a 20 and you correct
Yeah.
at a 10, and that's the harshest you can do, you're still
Yeah.
at a gap, right?
That sounds about
That's
right.
why,
Yeah.
that's why e-collars, in my opinion, so effective, is because I can match
Okay.
the dog,
Okay.
without the need of physicality, which removes the frustration factor. Because we're human,
Yeah.
and then next thing you know, the anger and the frustration's coming through the corrections, and you don't want that. You always
Yeah.
want to be indifferent. And it's a lot simpler than most people think. Like, I don't care about altering feeding. Like, it doesn't have any effect on the dog. That's
Okay.
human thinking. Dog, like,
Okay.
another dog, the mom won't, like, starve the puppies and say, like, until you behave, like, you're not going to eat. Right?
Right.
She just feeds them. And if they get out of line, she bites the crap out of them.
Right.
That's all it is. Right? It's just physicality.
Totally.
So once you understand it, it's much simpler than the world makes it seem. Okay.
Okay.
So
Cool.
the way I would approach this is typically it'd be 2 sessions. We tackle the heel command first to help resolve any outside reactivity on leash, and to serve as our foundation to working to the separation when you're, like, just out in the backyard or whatever. Okay.
Okay.
So then the part about that is it's really just about disciplining them and telling them, like, you being so needy is not acceptable, and consequence.
Sure.
If you want to whine and bark while we're out talking to the neighbors, consequence.
Okay.
So it's like, for me, if I, to reimagine this with me growing up, if my mom was outside talking to her friends, and I was like, Mom, banging on the windows inside, like, Mom, right? She'd come in, whoop my ass, tell me to go to my room, shut up, and then go back outside, right? And I love my mom.
Sure.
It would be consequence, right? So with the e-collar, you don't have to go inside.
Okay.
You can correct them while you're outside, and then you just find the right number.
Sure.
Right? Then it's just, you want to whine and bark and scratch the window. Well, this is what happens. Okay. And then he learns, okay, like, that's not to my benefit. Okay.
Sure.
That's actually pretty easy in the sense of addressing the behavior. What would make it difficult is just he's a Pittie and the intensity that he brings to things. Okay.
Sure.
Same thing for the backyard. Anything that you want to stop, whether it's jumping, barking, nipping, chewing, fence behavior, it's just consequence. Okay. It has nothing to do with obedience. Telling him to sit in the backyard isn't going to fix barking at the fence. Because as soon as you release him from the sit, he's going to bark at the fence.
Right.
Okay. It's just consequence for the behavior to tell him, I don't agree with this, cut it out. Okay. And then we'd most likely cover recall, just because every dog should know recall. And then what you choose to do with it, like if he's at the dog park or something, you have something to pull him away from playing with dogs and stuff like that. If you're noticing any, like, behaviors in the dog park, like if you see someone walking out the fence and he wants to bark at them, again, you have something to stop him without needing to be tethered to him. It's all at the press of a button. Okay. And then, so for you, I have 6, 9, and 12-week programs. I'm gearing more towards the 6-week for you guys.
Okay.
It seems what you're needing is simpler. So it'd be 2 for the leash walking to help address reactivity, get our foundation down, 2 for recall. And then the last 2 would be kind of like, hey, this is great. What else can we learn? And then I would say, well, what would you want to learn? Okay. The only other thing that maybe you might potentially need is stationary work. But like if you took them to a friend's house and you didn't want them wandering all over, like telling them to lay down and not moving for a period of time, Otherwise, if it's just we walk our dog, we take them to the dog park or the park, and we're home, you'd be fine with the more simpler approach.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm not big
Yeah,
on
I think
teaching
all-
stuff you need.
Are these all virtual? Is that what you were saying?
No, we meet in person at Oz Park.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were just saying this part of it was that you were recording, or were you saying when you were talking about at the beginning, recording the sessions?
Oh yeah, so we record the consultations, the Zoom sessions, and the training sessions. Correct.
Got it.
So if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll find like I have a playlist that says consultations, and you'll see other virtual ones, and then you'll see social distance dog training, and you click on that, and it's me, and it's a ton of videos of me with people at Oz Park, and it's all verbal instruction. Okay, you're doing everything yourselves, and people have been liking it better because they're doing everything from ground zero up. Right, I don't even touch the dog, so nothing's even associated to me. And I actually did a consultation today where the lady was like, yeah, when we were with the trainer, because the trainer did a 2-week board and train, the dog was great, right? Whenever the trainer was around, the dog was great. I'm like, yeah, because everything's related to the trainer. I'm like, I'm removing myself from the picture. It's just you. So then everything's related to you. So it doesn't matter if I'm there.
Always been, even with other dogs, which never was really necessary, but whenever we talk about it, it's like, I know there's something that, there's a reason why they're so on point, and then it doesn't always work, because
Right.
obviously the authority has changed and stuff. So,
yeah. So
totally get that. Yep.
Yeah, and when I first did this, I was like, I'm pretty sure I can do it because e-collar is so simple. It's my methods and exercises are very simple to learn and understand, and I've broken it over the course of years, kind of devised how it works. So it was just like, all right, well, I'm pretty sure I can keep training. I just take myself out the equation.
Yeah.
And everybody's been doing great. You still got to do your homework,
right?
But people are motivated because they see it work. Because Oz Park's busy.
Yeah.
We got kids, rollerbladers, skateboarders, dogs.
Know it well. Yep, know it well, and he's been there plenty of times because our son goes to school there and plays baseball at Lincoln Park. So one of the more problematic things we've had with him was last baseball season. Having him, Oz Park was a disaster, man. I would bring him there and just be working on everything as simple as like just wanted to go and like have him be somewhat controlled to watch the game for a little bit, and it was just about as challenging environment as he's been in. I would say would be at Oz Park because it's packed and everything going on. So yeah, that's a good spot.
If you do Oz, you can do anywhere else.
Yeah. So exactly, man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, it's been great so far.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So that's why I'm such a big advocate for e-collar and why it's my go-to, because my standard for training is up here.
Okay.
And the only tool that can get me that is the e-collar. So it's like, why would I settle for anything less?
Sure.
Because people ask me like, Jesse, like, I'll pay you your rate, just use food to train my dog. I go, no, because my standard is here. And I know other methods won't get it. And at the end of the program, you're going to be like, crap, I paid this guy $100 and something an hour and my dog isn't that good. I'm like, it's not because I'm not good.
Right.
It's the methods.
Sure.
So how much does Doc weigh?
Little, he's 40-ish, a little over maybe. Yeah.
So you technically have two choices. Okay. One collar runs about 287 with tax. The other one runs about 352 with tax. Okay. It's an investment, but if you take care of it, it'll last you a long, long time. I've had mine about 8 years now. Okay. They're waterproof, 3/4 mile to a mile range, depending on the model that you get.
Wow.
So one is meant for 70-pound dogs and under. One is meant for 70-pound dogs and over. Okay. When I work with Pitties, because I know the Pittie brain, I give people options and I'll tell them, I suggest you opt for the higher powered collar. Okay. Because you have to, it's not about the size of the dog so much as it is about the mentality. Right.
Sure.
So let's say all it means is that the number would be lower than if you use the other collar. So if one collar, his number might be 50, and on the higher powered one, it might be like 35, right? So you just get a little more wiggle room in terms of what the collar offers. And I always like to think in case of like an emergency. So like I've had clients whose dogs, like someone will set off a firework and it'll spook the dog and they'll start running.
Sure.
Right? Is now the dog's in fear. And it's not about obedience in that mode. It's not like come and the dog's like, sure, I'll forget about that and just like come back to you all willy-nilly. Like it's like the dog's running for its life.
Right.
So you have to override that, and power is what allows us to do so that we make sure that dog returns, right? I had a lady, her dog had very high prey drive, or has very high prey drive for squirrels. Dog took off after a squirrel over at Travis Park and blazed through the park, blazed through the kids' playground, was just about to hit the street, and she had to max out the collar and hit the continuous button, which is the strongest output of the collar. And she's like, I saw her jump up in the air, scream, hit the ground, but 180 straight back to me.
Okay.
Okay. But she had to override prey drive, you know, and
Right.
she felt terrible because her dog yelped, but she's like, she would have been in the street.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, so technically he falls under either, but I always like to plan for a worst case scenario, rather have it not need it than need it not have it.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it is your decision, okay? And we'll send you that information.
Okay.
Other questions or any concerns?
She has always been more on the fence with the e-collar, obviously, so speak up if.
Yeah, I
What-
mean, this is really informative, and I totally get where you're coming from. I have a hard time with the prong collar, but it's necessary. It's just not. But having a dog this difficult, or this, you know, just spooked or whatever it is, maybe it would be better for him to have some real discipline. Because yeah, I think at this point we're like so frustrated all the time that it's
more abusive than
it's
you
definitely
know what I
something
mean. Just the negative energy is like
right.
It's not
For
healthy
us,
for anybody. Yeah.
So I just want to think about it for a minute, but that's been something I haven't really wanted to go down, but this has been really helpful to understand some of the benefits and just the thought process behind it. And we had that when I was growing up, and it was improperly used with our dog, and it was not trained. You know, we got one in the mail, and like you just put, you know, it would beeped him all the time, and I just thought it was like the most horrible thing, because he would like pee himself or be like, you know, it was just awful. And so I have a little
negative experience, and definitely any tool can be misused, right? And not every trainer who does e-collar well. I have trained several other trainers' dogs who did e-collar, full, 2 to 4 week board and trains, and the dog doesn't listen, or was the e-collar wasn't layered appropriately, or wasn't even taught to the owner. You know, it's unfortunately the dog training world. It's not so cut and dry in terms of who's good and not so good.
Sure.
And definitely, if you misuse it, you're gonna get responses like your dog. But also, e-collars have come a long way from back with.
No, I don't even know what you would call it. It was like a buzz, you know, and that was a small dog. A shot collar. It was more, it was a shot collar. But anyway, I mean, it's definitely been, I totally understand the methodology, and this is really helpful. It's just something I gotta think about for a second. But I get it, and I'm at my wit's end, so I'm, I want him to, and I don't want to, we want him to have a nice life. And I feel like right now we're borderline because we're frustrated and, not taking him to do things, or, not bringing him outside with us because.
You don't have the control, and it's not pleasant, right? And the whole thing, and I get this a lot because, it's like people tend to withdraw a bit, especially when the dog's reactive. They're like going out at weird hours, like 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that, and like peeking around corners of buildings because they don't want to get caught off guard. And then I had one lady, I remember she did 9 classes. Her dog was a Pittie, it was dog reactive, and she told me I would never trust this dog off leash, right? And I said, that's fine. I'm like, you have the capacity to, and in my opinion, the dog was great. I was like, you have the capacity to, and you have the skill set to, but if you're not comfortable, don't do it, is what I always tell people.
Well, I'm totally not comfortable ever off leash. Like when you were talking about that, Lee, I get frustrated with a lot of the off leash because we have a dog who is, I don't want your dog to run up anywhere near my dog because you don't know what my dog has going on, you know, and what, even if he's fully trained, that still is, you know, I'd like him to be able to go to the dog park for fun, if that was fun for him, you know, and like get exercise and have some doggy friends. But the off leash thing, I'm not, obviously in the backyard and around or taking him to other people's houses and stuff would be nice, but I'm not, my intent is not to walk with him down the street without a leash on.
Oh yeah, no, like, because father, right? But where it comes into play, like some of my clients go hiking, you know, they go up to like a cabin up the lake and stuff, and there's deer and like, you know, other wild animals.
Yeah.
Definitely in the city, like the most off leash that people typically use is the recall. You know, like Oz Park is not a dog park, but there's a section where a lot of people take their dogs to be off leash, right? I don't have a problem with it, except when people don't have off leash etiquette. You know,
Sure.
So like if I have my
Exactly.
dog off leash and I see you with your dog, I'd call my dogs in, give you space until I pass you up, and then I'd give my dog freedom again. And I know my dogs aren't going to go anywhere near your dog, right? Whereas
No,
most people just assume.
Yeah, there's just so many that are so bad with it. And I'm like, your dog, I mean, there's dogs like running up and then they're like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. He's nice. And I'm like, okay, but you don't know what my dog is. You don't know if I have any, like, it's very strange dog. So
I completely
anyway,
understand. Yeah.
but that's off topic.
But we know that you're not talking about that arrangement.
Yeah.
No, right.
Right. We're not yet. No, he would obviously in the city be on a leash still, regardless, 90% of the time. But yeah, like backyard situation or perfect example with hiking. We love hiking and would be super fun to be able to bring him on a hike and not have to leash him. And that would be incredible. So
So this tool
and because
allows-
he's because of his blindness, he's not a big bolter because of his blindness. You know what I mean? He'll like bolt, but he'll always get nervous. So he's kind of, that's a benefit is that he's never bolted before, like, oh shit. You know, he's bolted for like a minute and then he usually gets scared. And if I like just remind him any kind of noise, he'll like come back and find me. You know, it's more like if he's leashed and somebody comes in his space that it can be a little bit ugly, but thankfully, right. The bolting is not as much of an issue with him because of that. So, which is good.
Yeah, and then you know, think about it, process it, and that's why again put up the videos for people to watch and go like, okay, like it's not what it would, like, you know, your experience, you'll see a different response. The lesson, I label them lesson 1, lesson 2. You definitely want to watch a lesson 1 video because it's a dog with no concept of what e-collar is and working them through it, and then then you see the beginning to end. Okay. So yeah, if do you have any other questions or anything else that you want to talk about?
No, I think the videos will be really helpful. I'll definitely take a look at that today and you know, I think that's a great opportunity that you have to be able to film those right now. It's helpful.
Yeah.
And you'll send some about the e-collars. You said is that something you can email with the 2 options?
Yeah, so Maria's going to send you an email.
Okay.
She's going to send you a training form, and then she's going to send you the make and models. You can get them on Amazon.
Okay.
And then I'm going to send you some videos. So once you're confirmed, and I know that you're training, I'm going to follow up with you because I made videos to educate you on the e-collar.
Okay.
I also suggest that you read your booklet that it comes with and that you test it first because it is electric. So it's every now and then they send out a lemon. So in case you get a lemon, you can always return it and get a good e-collar. And this way we don't waste the class. Because I had that once where I showed up and the collar was a dud. And you'll know because it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, like it goes in increments of 1 all the way up to 127. Okay. and hers went from like 5 to 35, like with the tiniest movement. And I'm like, I can't work with this. I'm like, that's so drastic, you know? And then it ended up being a wasted lesson. Then she had to return the collar, wait for the new one to come in and all that stuff. So definitely test it first.
Okay.
Get familiar with it. The videos will help educate you and also tell you how to start kind of getting the dog in tune with it. You don't start it, you just learn it, so that when we come to class, I don't waste time on stuff that you could have been just watched on a video, and we just jump straight into the training aspect.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
And if anything else pops up, you just let us know. And then
What about the boarding? Is that, do you board?
Yeah,
Is
they
that-
board
Okay.
daycare and all that.
yeah,
And
we
that
have
was like I said, like I don't, and that's I guess another discussion. But so just real, so with that, the picking him up and him being soaked, because we were still taking him there and would be if we were still going to work. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I'm never, it was so bad I'm never taking him. But is that something that alarms? If that was your dog, would that response alarm you a lot? Like if you're picking him up soaked, or is that kind of like something where it's like that's just it's okay, it's metal, so he can't chew through the door. That was kind of the negative thing, is like if it's wood, he's destructive with it. But that's not something that's, I felt like I was like, God, this is really bad of me. You know what I mean? But I didn't really have any good.
the way I would look at it is, I had another client whose dog was similar, but would sit in the corner of the room and salivate.
Okay.
So they wouldn't even play. They would just sit in the corner and salivate the entire time. And I told them, it's not getting any better, and they're not doing anything proactive with your dog. I think it's just, unless you have to board your dog, like, I don't think daycare was worth it, right?
Yeah.
In your
That's
case,
how I feel about it.
like, it's personal preference. If he was playing, but then when he was separated from the group, he was salivating, like, I get it, right? Now, if he came here and we saw that, we would address it, right?
Right.
But I wouldn't be able to guarantee that he would stop the behavior, because it's just salivating, right?
Sure.
But I would tell you, like, hey, this is what we've done. He plays with the dogs, because we don't have video cameras. We're pretty simple.
Okay.
We do like videos on Instagram or whatever, and pictures and stuff. But we tell you, like, yeah, he plays with the other dogs, and we try to, we've done or used the e-collar, because you've done training, to see if we can pacify him that we're not getting salivating, which can happen.
Okay.
I just can't guarantee that it'll happen.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
But knowing that we have the tool, that's what my place, I built it on reinforcing training. Even if the dog wasn't trained with us, we still reinforce it.
Okay.
Doesn't cost, it's not any extra work on us. Like, we love dogs that are trained, right?
Yeah.
Because then if we have any issues, we know we have the tools at hand to address it, which allows us the ability to take in dogs that no other places would reject. Okay. And we had a dog that her first day, I completely forgot, but the owner told me she'll bend the bars of the kennel. And I ran up front for like 5 minutes to like answer a phone call. And I went back, and she had bent the kennel bars all the way back. Right. So, but she was e-collar trained. And then I just educated my employees, and we cut that out within like 30 minutes. And it went from bending the kennel bars to salivating to relaxing in the kennel, no problem.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. But it's not a guarantee with every dog.
Oh,
But
right.
I'm less, if the salivating physically, I'm not terribly worried. I don't want to send him there if he's miserable there. And that's what we could never get like a real answer about, and I didn't feel like anybody really knew or cared.
Which we were very part-time, customers. So it wasn't like, we weren't taking them every
I'm
day.
not trying
or
to
whatever,
bash
so.
the place. I'm just,
Oh yeah, no, for sure. The way I would look at it, in my opinion, is if it was my dog, I would just look at it as, is he having more fun than stress?
Okay.
Right? So if they're like, he's outside 5 hours out the day, and for 3 hours he's in his kennel, like, there's more fun than stress, mathematically speaking, right?
Sure.
If it was more time in the kennel and he's under stress, clearly it's not a healthy state.
yeah.
Right? Like, we don't like being stressed. We definitely don't like being stressed for a period of time, hence quarantine and people going and stuff like that, right? But at the end of the day, I always tell people, opt for what makes you feel good.
Okay.
because otherwise you have that kind of in the back of your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So, but it's all. He's more than welcome to try it out here, and we're more than happy to work with him to see if we can get him to pacify and, not be, so
Give us
stressed out.
feedback about it, right?
Yeah, and we let you know.
Okay.
So yeah.
Sounds good, man. Well, this has been great. So next steps would be we'll look for the email, talk about the collar thing, and then they'll be through email. We'll just communicate if we're ready to move forward with. You said a 6-week program would be.
Yeah,
Start
for
spot.
what you described, 6 classes, because you get 6 classes plus 2 Zoom sessions.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so the Zoom sessions will be to kind of target anything in the home, and or any kind of, if you have a bunch of questions, instead of using them while we're at the park, I want that to be more hands-on time, and then questions we can do via Zoom. Okay.
Cool.
And then Maria will get in touch with you, and of course, go on YouTube, look at my videos, and then you can get acquainted. Okay.
You got it.
Great.
Jesse, it was great.
It was a
Appreciate your
pleasure.
time,
Thank
and
you.
look forward to being in touch.
All right. We'll let you know.
Great.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Have a great day.